Lisa Vetten is my guest. She's a researcher who specializes in gender violence. Lisa, good evening. Thanks for joining us. A lot of reaction, Twitter, Facebook, blogs, Human Rights Commission, you heard there saying this is a reflection of our moral fiber, a reflection of an angry society. Is this too philosophical?
No, I think what it's a reflection of is a society that's highly moralistic rather than moral, and is very quick to divide people into good and bad, and to say that those who behave badly we are entitled to treat as badly as we wish. And we see that reflected in the endless calls for death penalty and castration when it comes to rape. We seem to think that if people don't behave in the way we want, we're justified in treating them brutally, denying their rights in all ways, and that is part of our problem.
So is it possible? I mean, everyone's, people are speculating why this is, why an incident like this can happen. Is it possible at all to make sense of such things?
Yes, I think if you look at the strongly moralistic and punitive streak that runs through South African society, this fits very squarely into it. Whether it's the vigilante killings, which people, or other vigilante attacks, which people justify on the grounds that so-and-so is a thief or whatever, and we're entitled to behave like this, to parents who beat their children because they're behaving badly, to husbands or boyfriends who beat their wives or girlfriends because they haven't behaved in the way they should. There is a belief in this country that if you step out of line, I'm allowed to treat you as badly as I want. And some of it you see coming through in a particular strand of very punitive Christianity even, that bad behavior means you're a bad person and therefore you can be treated brutally.
Are those not universal sentiments though? And also, is it not just plainly an example of those who are stronger exerting their power over the weak?
Well, absolutely, and I think we've created a situation where we sanction that, where, for example, you've seen how many parents object to the fact that corporal punishment has been removed. I think people do think they have a right to respond violently, and trying to shift that in South African society is incredibly difficult. I think it's part of the reasons why we have the problems we do. We're an authoritarian society. We like to respond with brutality and violence and tell people what to do. When they don't behave, we think that entitles us to hit them. So until we can find ways to behave differently when people behave in ways that we think are wrong, we are going to continue to have this problem. And I think it's no use looking at our lack of moral fiber. We've got to look at how do we respond to things that we think are antisocial.
Maybe we can flesh that out a little bit after this following question, talking about the ethics of this. This woman was clearly filmed against her. Well, I don't even think she knows it was happening. And now it's all over the place. She's exposed. She's humiliated. Cell phone footage has become commonplace these days. So where are the boundaries there?
I think it raises a lot of interesting debate. Some people have this perception that if we see horrible things, it will shock us into taking action. And I think the sad truth is that it doesn't. You only need to look at all the war footage that people put out and still wars continue. I think with this kind of imagery as well, when people look at it, I don't think they look at it to understand or to feel compassion or empathy. I think they look at it for quite voyeuristic reasons and because they want to be shocked. I think things like this do raise ethical questions. These are images of her degradation and debasement, which she didn't give her permission. Is it right to have this out in the public realm? Because every time people look at it, they are participating in her humiliation. She can't control this. Strangers who've never seen her before now know something very humiliating about her. She can't retract this. So I think questions of cell phones and viral imagery open up a whole lot of questions around ethics and how we as a public perhaps are becoming immune to other people's suffering and are treating it as a form of entertainment. So
what would you say to, critics who might say, the sentiments you've expressed are those of a self-loathing liberal, the kind of, as you say, church-like is the word I think you used, application of laws or the kind of rigidity is what works in society, and we need limitations and controls to control and guide society. What alternatives do you bring to the table that can actually work?
Well, I think firstly one has to look at when you are if you look at anger management, for example, if you are angry, if you are upset, how do you relay that to people without feeling the need to beat them to a pulp in order to make your point? How do we make the police more effective so that people don't feel that they are entitled to take the law into their own hands because the police are not effective? I think also, there's the standard questions of how do we build greater empathy for other people. This doesn't build empathy. You're watching somebody else's pain. Do you go and do anything useful about it, or do you just use it as conversation over your dinner table? You probably don't. I think this should be this is the kind of thing that should be prompting conversations rather about how do we change behavior.
And I'm sure there'll be some strong views on this interview as well. And so we encourage our viewers to go to our Twitter feed on eNCA and perhaps go to the website as well, www.enca.com, and join some of the discussion. Lisa Vetten was my guest. She's a researcher specializing in gender violence.
News that moves. eNCA.com.